Once upon a time, in the bustling city of Lagos, there lived a famous wig stylist named Madame Stella. Everyone knew her shop, Stella's Touch, a haven for women who sought to revive their old and worn out wigs. Madame Stella's reputation was unmatched, as her skill at transforming tired wigs into masterpieces attracted customers from far and wide. Women from all walks of life trusted her with their wigs as they swore by her work, claiming that their wigs looked brand new after one visit to her shop. Madame Stella stood out as the best in the revamping business in the state. She received nothing less than 300 wigs daily, and Madame Stella had a strict rule that customers were not allowed to bring more than one wig at a time, no matter how many they owned. Several customers offered to pay double for her services if she agreed to revamp more than one of their wigs, but Madame Stella stood firm to her rule, not caring about the money. Little did they know that Madame Stella was not an ordinary wig stylist. She wasn't revamping wigs to make them beautiful, as she had a more sinister goal behind her revamping services. One day, a customer named Amara dropped her favorite wig off for revamping. It was an old but expensive wig that she had cherished for years. 3 days later, when she returned to pick up the wig, Madame Stella handed it to her in a black bag, reminding her of her second rule: do not open the bag until you get home. Amara obeyed, but the moment she opened the bag at home, she felt a cold chill run down her spine. In that moment, a call came in that the contract that she had been pursuing for months had just been approved. Amara could not believe her ears. She stared at the wig and had a good feeling that the wig had brought good luck to her. Amara was so delighted. She told her friends about what had happened, and soon all her friends, excited by her success, flocked to Stella's Touch with their wigs. They believed Madame Stella had a magical touch that brought good fortune to her customers. Word spread quickly, and Madame Stella's business boomed even more. Women whispered in salons and even church meetings about how their revamped wigs from Stella's Touch changed their lives. Each customer received a mind-blowing news immediately they opened their wig bag at home, making them believe that Madame Stella was blessed with good luck. Every day, the line outside Madame Stella's shop grew longer as socialites, traders, bankers, and even struggling students brought in their wigs to her, hoping to turn their fortunes around. Madame Stella accepted each wig with a smile, reminding her customers of her strict rules. One wig at a time, she would say, as the people dropped their wigs in the basket in the corner of her shop. Little did they know that Madame Stella had a secret that no one could ever imagine. Every night, after the shop closed, Madame Stella retreated to the back room. This space was filled with bowls of blood-red water, each glowing faintly in the dark. She would take the wigs dropped off by her customers and perform a secret ritual on them. She would dip each wig into the bowls whilst chanting in an ancient language. As she chanted, the water spirits would awaken and attach themselves to the wigs. These spirits were powerful and carried the ability to bring good fortune to whoever wore them. However, the fortune only lasted for a while before the spirits unleashed chaos on them, rendering them useless for life. Amara, thrilled by the good luck she had enjoyed after wearing her revamped wig, got proposed to by a billionaire she met on one of her business trips. She also received huge financial gifts from him, as well as a mansion and several luxury cars. Amara became the envy of all as she basked in her newfound life. Months passed, and one day, Amara was returning home from work when she came across a beggar who sat by the side of the road begging for food. Amara decided to give the beggar some money, but was shocked at what the beggar did in return. The beggar, who looked extremely hungry and tired, returned her money back to her, saying that the money carried a darkness that she could not accept. Amara was so startled. She asked what she meant by her statement, but the beggar looked up at her with her piercing eyes that seemed far older than her frail body. "You have been touched by spirits from the depths," she said in a low voice as she walked away, leaving Amara in shock. Amara could feel her heart race. She tried to dismiss the beggar's words as nonsense, but her haunting gaze lingered in her mind long after she walked away. That night, as Amara went to bed, she began to feel so restless. Her head burned in a way that made it difficult to sleep. Amara stayed up all night, pondering on what could be wrong. By morning, she sat in her living room alone, her eyes heavy, when suddenly she found herself in the depths of the ocean, struggling to breathe. Amara could not understand how this was possible. She knew that she was sitting in her living room, but here she was, sinking deeper and deeper in the ocean, unable to breathe. Amara struggled as if trying to fight the invisible force pulling her into the depths of the ocean. Her lungs burned as she gasped for air, but had salt water fill in her mouth. Just as she thought that her life had come to an end, she woke up, drenched in her own sweat. She was on her living room floor, gasping for breath and wondering what could have happened. It was just a dream, she said to herself as her heart raced. Deep down, Amara knew that it was more than just a dream. That same morning, Amara arrived at her office excited to celebrate the latest deal that she had signed when her phone rang. Amara picked up the call, and the caller on the other end of the line said something that sent chill down her spine. "You've taken what is not yours. Now it's my turn to take it all." The call ended abruptly, leaving Amara shaken by the words said. Moments later, Amara received an email saying that the firm who just signed a deal with her company had pulled out for unforeseen reasons. The call she received earlier replayed in her mind, and Amara knew that whoever it was had something to do with what had just happened. So she tried calling the number back and realized that there was no number on her call log. It was as if she never received the call, and Amara could not believe her eyes. She returned home that evening to realize that her house had been sealed by the police. Amara tried to understand what was happening and was told that her billionaire boyfriend was involved in fraudulent activities and all his properties, including the houses and cars that he gave to her, had to be seized pending the outcome of their investigation. Amara was left with no home at this point. She called up her friends, who all seemed to be going through one crisis or the other that made it impossible for them to help. Amara was stranded. She returned to her old apartment, hoping to head to the bank the next morning to withdraw some cash. As she slept that night, Amara found herself drowning in the depths of the ocean again. This time, her head felt heavy, as if she was carrying a heavy rock on her head. She woke up a few hours later with a banging headache. Amara could not take her mind off all the strange things that had been happening. She arrived at her bank later that afternoon. The bank, after thorough investigation, revealed that there was no record to show that she ever had money in her account. Amara could not believe her ears. The millions she once had in her account had mysteriously disappeared, and Amara could not help but panic. She stood there, unsure of what to do, when a call came through her phone. It was her uncle, who called to inform her that her mother and brother had just died. Amara froze on hearing the news. She asked how this was possible, and her uncle revealed to her that her mother and brother slept and did not wake up. Amara was so devastated. She sat on the cold marble floor of the bank, trying to process the shocking revelation as her mind raced with questions. How could everything she had worked for disappear without a trace? The bank manager, though sympathetic, could do nothing to help. Amara left the bank feeling helpless and defeated. With no money at hand, Amara decided to return back to her old apartment, a shadow of the woman she used to be. Her once lively spirit was now weighed down by the overwhelming misfortunes that she had faced. She lost everything and could not believe how fast things came tumbling down. After attaining such level of success, Amara began to think about the beggar's words and the dreams that she had been having. She realized that everything had started to fall apart after she retrieved her wig from Madame Stella. It was baffling to her how something that once seemed to bring her incredible fortune had now become the root of her deepest misery. Amara sat in silence, piecing together the chain of events. Amara, in that moment, knew that her fortune was too good to be true, and now she was paying the price. Determined to find out the truth, Amara decided to confront Madame Stella. She arrived the store late at night and found her way in through an open window at the back. Amara quietly made her way through the quiet store. Her eyes caught sight of the door at the end of the corridor, and Amara decided to check what was behind the door. She approached the door and realized that it was slightly open, so Amara peeped through the door and saw something that sent shivers down her spine. Madame Stella stood in the center of the room, her hands raised as she chanted in a strange language. The water in the bowls bubbled and hissed as some evil shadowy figures emerged from the bowls and were absorbed into the wigs. Amara froze, her heart racing. She finally understood the horrifying truth that Madame Stella was using dark magic to bind evil spirits to the wigs. These spirits granted temporary fortune, but demanded a heavy price, which was suffering and destruction. Amara quickly rushed out of the store, terrified of what she had seen. She could not risk being caught and knew that she had to figure out a way to expose Madame Stella. Meanwhile, Madame Stella continued to revamp thousands of wigs, attaching water spirits to each wig that she worked on. One afternoon, a university student named Nkoli came to Madame Stella's store with her friend Diola to pick up her wig. She was so excited to finally experience the fortunes that everyone had raved about. Her best friend Diola stood there and watched as Madame Stella handed the wig over to Nkoli, reminding her of the rule not to open the bag till she got home. Diola found this rule strange and couldn't help but voice out her concerns. Why must she have rules for everything? Didn't you pay for her service? Why must she dictate where and when you open your own wig? She asked Nkoli, who brushed off her concerns as unnecessary. What if the wig turns out not to be yours? She said to Nkoli, who decided to go against the rule and open the wig bag in front of Madame Stella's store. Immediately she opened the bag. Diola watched as Nkoli turned into a strange fish in front of their eyes. She screamed out in terror as people gathered in front of the store, shocked at what they were hearing. Nkoli was now a fish, and Diola knew that it had something to do with the wig. Madame Stella rushed out from her store, pretending not to know who Diola was and what she was talking about. After all, Diola was not her customer, and Madame Stella knew that she could use this technicality to avoid any form of suspicion. You are not my customer, young lady, Madame Stella said calmly as she accused Diola of trying to sabotage her business. Diola stood there frustrated, unable to convince the people of what had happened. She watched as her friend Nkoli struggled to stay alive. She was now a fish, and Diola did not know what to do. She immediately called Nkoli's sister on the phone, explaining all that happened to her. But before Nkoli's sister arrived at the scene, Nkoli had already stopped moving. The fish was dead, and Nkoli's sister Oluchi could not believe that the dead fish was her sister. She broke down in tears, holding the lifeless fish in her hands. This cannot be true, Oluchi whispered. There must be a way to fix this, she said as the crowd grew larger, with people murmuring and pointing fingers at them. Madame Stella stood at the doorway of her store furious. Enough, she said. These girls have brought chaos to my shop with their lies. Can't you all see that these people only want to bring me down? She said as she accused them of trying to frame her up. The people believed Madame Stella and began to yell angrily at Diola and Oluchi. Seeing how agitated the crowd was becoming, Diola and Oluchi decided to flee the scene for their lives. They could not stand being lynched, not after what had already happened to Nkoli. The news spread all over social media, and soon Madame Stella became the center of attention. While some people questioned her mysterious rules, others defended her, claiming that she was a victim of jealous competitors. The people trusted Madam Stella because they were desperate for change. In Lagos, a city where appearances mattered, many believed her wigs could transform their lives. Women wanted success, marriage, or respect, and Madam Stella seemed to offer an easy way to get it. Her rules were strange, but her reputation made people ignore their doubts. Stories of instant good luck and glowing reviews from famous clients made her seem like a miracle worker. The pressure to look good, succeed, and meet society's expectations was so strong that no one questioned her methods. To them, Madam Stella wasn't just fixing wigs, she was fixing lives. Videos of Nkoli as a fish began to circulate, and people found it hard to believe that a girl transformed into a fish. They believed it was all staged by her competitors to bring her down, and Madam Stella became more popular than before. Her shop, Stella's Touch, became a national sensation as others not only poured in from Lagos but from across the whole country. Celebrities and influential figures publicly endorsed her services, claiming that her wigs brought incredible fortune to them. Madam Stella appeared on television shows, confidently dismissing the accusations as baseless rumors. She described herself as a hardworking woman, unfairly targeted by envy. With a charming smile, she won over millions of supporters who ensured that her business thrived despite the scandal. But as the months went by, several women began to experience bad luck in their lives. They dared not to speak out, seeing the kind of support Madam Stella had gotten from celebrities and influential women in the country. Meanwhile, Diola and Oluchi refused to let the matter rest. They were determined to uncover the truth about Madam Stella and expose her evil activities. The death of Nkoli weighed heavily on their minds, and they knew that Madam Stella was not the innocent woman that she claimed to be. They began their investigation by reaching out to other customers of Madam Stella, pretending to be journalists, working on a story about the beauty business. Initially, many customers were reluctant to speak, praising Madam Stella's work and claiming that they had no complaints. However, as Diola and Oluchi dug deeper, they found a pattern of strange occurrences among some women. One woman, who wished to remain anonymous, revealed that after wearing her revamped wig, she experienced a month of incredible luck. She became pregnant after 20 years of being married. Her husband, who had been sick for years, miraculously regained his health. She was so delighted as her life was finally taking a turn for the best, when suddenly everything went south. Her husband, who was now hale and hearty, slumped and died before her eyes on the same day that she lost her pregnancy. She also described vivid nightmares of drowning in the ocean at night. "It's like something cursed me," she said, pointing at her wig, which now sat in the corner of her room. "I've tried destroying the wig, but each time I try, it reappears in my wardrobe the next morning, completely untouched," the woman said, her voice trembling. "It feels like I'm trapped with it, and I don't know what to do." Diola and Oluchi documented her story carefully, assuring her that they were working to uncover the truth and would find a way to stop Madam Stella. Another woman, Nkem, shared her strange experience with them. She was desperate for a husband and decided to revamp her wig with Madam Stella, following all the positive reviews that she had heard. Nkem narrated how after wearing her revamped wig, her life seemed to transform for the better. She met a wealthy man who proposed to her within weeks. They had a grand wedding, and she became the talk of the town. However, her happiness was short-lived as her husband began to act strangely a month after their wedding. He grew distant and started talking in his sleep, muttering about water spirits and curses. Nkem tried to ignore it until one night she woke up to find her husband standing at the edge of their swimming pool, staring into the water. "I tried to stop him," Nkem said, tears pouring down her face, "but he jumped in and I couldn't save him. He drowned right in front of me." After her husband's death, Nkem's life spiraled out of control. Her in-laws accused her of witchcraft and forced her out of the house. She was left homeless with nothing but her revamped wig, which she could not seem to get rid of. "Every time I try to burn or throw it away, it finds its way back to me," she said, showing Diola and Oluchi the wig that had ruined her entire life. Diola and Oluchi documented Nkem's story alongside the others. Growing more determined to expose Madame Stella, they noticed a pattern. Every woman who wore a wig from Stella's touch experienced a brief period of unimaginable fortune, followed by devastating misfortune tied to water-related incidents and nightmares. As they walked out of Nkem's house, they stumbled upon the same beggar that approached Amara a while ago. The beggar, recognizing who they were, stopped them to tell them her story. She was the first customer who Madame Stella ruined her life and turned her into a beggar. For years, she has been looking for a way to destroy Madame Stella, knowing the kind of power that she possessed. The poor beggar revealed to them that she was once a very wealthy woman with both local and international businesses. Madame Stella approached her one day at the shopping mall, claiming to be a hairstylist. She pleaded with her to give her a try, promising to transform her wig into a masterpiece. She agreed, seeing Madame Stella's insistence as a sign of genuine desperation for work. A few days later, she picked up her wig from Madame Stella's shop. Just like everyone else, she experienced a wave of incredible fortune. Her businesses flourished beyond her wildest dreams, and she expanded into markets she had never considered before. But soon, her life took a devastating turn. "My eldest son drowned in the bathtub one night," she said, her voice trembling. "It was the beginning of the end for me. My businesses began to collapse one after the other. I lost my home, my family, everything. This is what I have become, a shadow of who I was," she said, gesturing at her tattered clothes. Diola and Oluchi listened intently, stunned by the depth of her suffering. "But why didn't you speak out earlier?" Oluchi asked, and the woman sighed. "No one would believe me. Madame Stella is protected by powerful spirits. She has twisted the narrative to make herself a beloved figure. However, I've been searching for a way to stop her for all these years, and now I believe I've found it." Diola and Oluchi opened their eyes in shock as they inquired to know how. The woman then explained to them that Madame Stella's powers was tied to the blood-red bowls in her ritual room. These bowls contained water spirits. Destroying the bowls would sever her connection to the spirits and render her powerless. However, the spirits would not go down without a fight. They would protect their master at all costs. "But when this happens, I will tell you both what to do," she said to them, informing them that they had to put an end to her evil tonight. "It will be dangerous," she warned, revealing that it was the only way to stop her. Diola and Oluchi looked at each other. They were terrified, but knew that they had to do whatever it took to bring her down. When night came, the three women made their way to Madame Stella's store. They waited until the shop closed and snuck in through the back door. Walking gently, they overheard a humming sound coming from the back room and knew that Madame Stella was now performing her rituals. They approached the room quietly and caught sight of Madame Stella, whose hands were now raised as she chanted in a strange language. Around her were bowls filled with floating wigs that sent chills down their spines. The beggar, seeing how distracted Madame Stella was, rushed to the biggest bowl at the center of the room and sprayed some holy water into the bowls. The bowls of water began to bubble violently. Evil shadows emerged from the bowls and launched towards them, making it hard for them to breathe. The beggar, in that moment, screamed aloud, saying, "These spirits have no power over those who reject them. Reject them now and they will flee," she said as they all began to reject the spirits. Shockingly, the spirits let go of them, and Madame Stella screamed in frustration, trying to regain control. "So you've come to ruin me," Madame Stella said, her voice filled with extreme anger. The beggar spoke up to her, saying, "You gave me good fortune at first, just like you did to these women, but it didn't last. Everything I worked for turned to ash. My company crumbled, my family abandoned me, and I was left with nothing. I was cursed to wander the streets, feeding on scraps, while you thrived on the suffering of others." Madame Stella laughed mockingly, "And yet, here you are, still alive, a stubborn cockroach, clinging on to life. No one will ever believe you. They love and worship me. To them, you all are nothing but troublemakers, sent to bring me down." But before she could utter another word, Amara, who was hiding in the corner, watching everything that was happening, stepped forward with her phone in her hand. No one knew that she was there. As Amara arrived Madame Stella's store, moments before they arrived, hoping to confront Madame Stella. However, when she heard them come in, she was so terrified and hid in a corner. The whole encounter was being streamed live and Madame Stella could not believe her eyes. Thousands of people were in their homes watching her evil unfold. In that moment, Madame Stella let out a very horrifying scream as the water spirit subdued her and dragged her into the largest bowl at the center of the room. The bowl began to glow brightly, pulsing like a heartbeat as Madame Stella's body was absorbed into the water. Her screams echoed in the room, then immediately stopped. All the bowls cracked and shattered as the strange liquid in them evaporated instantly. The entire place fell into complete silence as the spirits, once enslaved by Madame Stella, vanished before their eyes. What they did not know was that the water spirits had a pact with Madame Stella to make her successful. However, this pact came with a warning that if her evil business was ever exposed, the water spirits would claim her. Madame Stella thought that she could keep her evil business a secret forever. What she did not know was that nothing can remain hidden forever. The beggar then turned to Amara and the others, saying that they must destroy her evil store to ensure that she never returns. Amara nodded as she continued to hold her phone in her hand. The live stream was still running and thousands of viewers witnessed everything that happened with Madame Stella. They all vacated the store and set it ablaze, ensuring that they destroyed whatever evil that had been done by the evil Madame Stella. As the flames engulfed Stella's torch, a huge crowd began to gather, drawn by her live stream and the spreading news of Madame Stella's downfall. People whispered and murmured in shock, finally understanding the truth about the evil hidden within Madame Stella's wig shop. The beggar, now free from the torments that had plagued her for years, turned to thank Diola, Oluchi and Amara for their bravery. In the days that followed, all the women who suffered misfortune finally had their fortunes restored, including Amara, whose business began to boom again. Diola and Oluchi continued to mourn the death of Nkoli, who they never got to see again. The authorities launched an investigation into the countless complaints and tragedies tied to her wigs, and victims began to come forward, sharing their stories and warning others to be wary of promises that seem too good to be true. As for Madame Stella, rumors spread about her fate. Some said she had been trapped in the depths of the ocean, forever bound to the spirit she had once commanded. No one knew for sure what had happened to her. This was how the people learned their lessons, not to trust others with their personal effects. The lesson to be learned from these stories is that things are not always as it seems. Do not follow the crowd blindly and do whatever they do, because oftentimes, broad is the way that leads to destruction. Always be cautious of the people to trust with your personal items, because evil can oftentimes hide behind beautiful faces and cute smiles. Never be desperate for anything in life, because desperation can blind one to potential dangers. I hope you enjoyed the story.